Workplace Therapist Show. And of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. This is our at-home edition. Really glad to have you join us here on a Friday for lunchtime if you're Eastern, and morning time, breakfast time if you're Pacific. I'm really excited about our topic today. And I get to have a returning guest who actually was one of my favorite guests of last year, Dr. Rob McKenna. Rob, how are you, man?
I am doing really well, Brandon. My birthday was 2 days ago, and I shared it with my son, and it was a great day. So I'm doing well.
How did that happen? I mean, I mean, there's no way to plan that, right? Did you know when he was about to get born? Like, was there a thought in your mind like this could happen?
Yeah, it was.
My birthday.
Yeah, my wife called and asked. She said, "How do you feel?" Because she needed to be he was late, and so it was time to induce him arriving. And she's like, "How do you feel about this? We could wait till tomorrow." I said, "No, I think after would be one day after would be even more awkward. So just yeah."
So it's funny because I don't share any birthdays with any of my kids, but my daughter, who's my oldest, she's 18. Abby is born on December 11th, so really close to Christmas. So that's the closest to a holiday without being on one. Now Noah is 15. He's on November 22nd, and about every 4 or 5 years, it lands on Thanksgiving. So he's got this weird, awkward, kind of Thanksgiving birthday. And then Aaron, my youngest, is on Valentine's Day, baby.
Oh, really?
14th. Yeah. And I told him, I said, Aaron, one day this is going to be a problem because it's going to be Valentine's Day. And is it going to be about you or is it going to be about your girlfriend? You're going to have that challenge. Well, I'm really excited to have you back on the show, Rob. And, I enjoyed our conversation so much. It felt like, we're like brothers from another mother, man. And so I thought this would be a great conversation for us. And particularly relevant because when we talked last time, we talked about your book, Composed, The Heart and Science of Leading Under Pressure. Well, did you know when you wrote this, like your son's birthday, that this would become very apropos to right now?
I guess I was waiting for the moment. I don't know. Yeah, it's been an interesting season for sure for that.
Yeah, it really has been. And talk about pressure and talk about people doing stuff that they've never had to do before. Yeah. I mean, even things like furloughs, unless you're, government or in some universities, businesses don't furlough. They typically, let people go or they hire people. They don't furlough. So there's so many new things that we're dealing with right now. So I'm so excited to talk about kind of this idea. And I want to dig in a little bit and even talk about the season of life you've been in kind of going through this. But before we do it, I always like to open these Friday shows with something positive. So I will go first. This is a really simple one, and I feel silly saying it. But my exercise routine has been horrible the last 2 months. I just have not been able to get back on a good rhythm. And our gym across the street kind of opened up with lots of precautions and lots of measures. And it's frankly been really nice to get back into a regular workout routine. I've been exhausted, but it's been really good to just feel like that part of my life is coming back. So I've been really thankful and positive for that. Whitney, how about you? What have you? I haven't even introduced Whitney, my amazing producer. I mean, she's just sitting back there. I haven't introduced her because she was dancing before the show, and I told her there's no dancing. You can't dance, and she just danced more. Whitney, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. What's something positive going on in your world?
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's the small things in life, Brandon. It really is. So recently, I was gifted with a gift card to the Container Store. And I finally went online and spent my gift card. And let me tell you, I got myself a Lazy Susan underneath my bathroom sink. And sometimes I just go in there and look at how beautiful it looks underneath the sink. I just spin the Lazy Susan.
It's the little things.
It really is.
I'm such little things, Rob. It's the little things.
It really is. Look, the ladies out there feel me right now. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I love it. It's good.
That's my thing.
I think Brandon froze.
I think so. Did we lose Brandon? I'm so sorry. I didn't know my story was going to be that great.
I know. I thought it was outstanding. It is those little things.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. This is what we've always had as a virtual continuity plan. You know what I mean?
True,
if this
yeah.
happens. And I don't know if this sounds like I'm bragging about this, but when he was talking about exercise, for some reason, this has been a really good season of that for me, but partly because I think I already home gym. It's my thing. And so for whatever reason, that's been my one release. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've been the same. Isaac in the background over here. We started working out too this past week.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And I'm totally one of those people that I love the results, but I hate being in the middle of it. Like, I'm not a runner. And so we did the same. We were really, really bad for the first couple of weeks of quarantine. I'm talking, eating ice cream and doing the whole Netflix. And we said we need to get back to doing something serious. So, and we were really good. We were going to the gym on a regular basis. And then quarantine hit. So, yeah.
Yeah. I understand. I don't know, for whatever reason, and I've been getting my sons to work out and try to get them a regimen. But I am not a runner either, but I run. I don't know. So I've continued to run, but I'm not a runner. I run painfully. I'm one of those people that does not smile when they run. I've got all kinds of bone creaks and all that, but I just keep going.
I gotta have some music, otherwise I complain the whole time.
Oh yeah, it's too boring.
Yes it is. And then all you have to think about is your pain.
That's all you have left. So true. Well, let's just talk about Brandon.
We should. We're on his Facebook page. We're on his Facebook page with a captive. First of all, Maureen, I know you feel me, right, with my lazy Susan. She said, yes, Whitney. I know she's feeling that right now on having a bathroom that's like put together when you don't have stuff all over your bathroom sink. It's amazing.
That's amazing. So if we took over the show, I guess we can. I never thought I'd be a proxy for the workplace therapist, or you can be too.
That's true. Isaac, can I borrow your glasses, please?
Yeah, here we
Okay,
go.
hold on.
Here they are.
Oh, wait, here we go. We've got Brandon Smith joining us. Hang on one moment. I'm going to let him in.
Say welcome to the Brandon Smith Show.
Oh, I will. As soon as he's back in. Welcome to the Brandon Smith Show.
Yeah, so was huge bolt of lightning and thunder hit, and I lost power.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, we're glad to have you back.
Yes.
We
Did I miss the show?
You
Rob?
did.
Did you tell
it
all
was
the best
amazing.
parts?
We were fully comfortable taking over completely, but then I thought it's going to be awkward for me to say the same things twice, or I don't know.
I even changed my look. Look.
That's gonna be the future of my show. My daughter already wants to take over. Every time she comes on the show, she's like, "Yeah, I'm taking over this show." I'm like, "Yeah, of course you are." So I take it you already talked about what you were what was positive thing that happened this week for you.
We just talked about our attempts to work out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling you don't have as much of a problem with it as I do, Rob. I just have this sneaky suspicion.
I can tell you stories about why. We talked about this already. We were offline. Yeah, when you were out there, whisked away into the world of the internet. Yeah.
So, okay, I want to pivot into our conversation a little bit today. Just for folks who didn't get the awesome pleasure of hearing you the first time, share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then maybe a little bit about your kind of a recent journey since we spoke last, which I think is a really cool part.
This really is going to be therapy, I can tell. Yeah, thank you, Brandon. It has been an interesting season for sure. I've been a career kind of crossing lines between being a business person and an academic for 25 years. And it's been, I've loved having my feet in both worlds, but I was non-normative always. And so there's a part of me that's a scientist. There's part of me that's that's entrepreneur and business leader kind of person. But there's also part of me that's academic. And so I made a choice that was interesting. As you know, leading up through probably 5 years ago, I made a choice at some point. So I was going to transition out of university context, and Wild Leaders, the organization that I founded, started to grow and get scale. But I always hoped to do both, and it became sort of difficult to do that. And the team at Wild Leaders needed me. So I made a choice on January 8th to step out of that world. And
Wow.
and I left a lot of. Sometimes I overshare, but it's the reality of my life. Is I left certain things like tenure. I left on the table. My son goes to college in the fall, and so one of the things that was a big part of that was leaving my tuition benefit on the table.
Yeah.
And it was a moment, but it was really exciting. The program, I chaired this master's and PhD program that we founded 17 years ago for all these years. And it is so dear to me, that community. And so to make that step was a big moment. And then this happened. So, and and I was experiencing everything that every business leader was experiencing in that moment. Financial responsibilities to your team, and then I'm in the space of leader development. So that's what we do. So it's been a really interesting journey, and it's been also an unbelievable moment to serve the leaders within our influence, the partner organizations that we have. I know a lot of people are having that same experience, and so when your business is whole and intentional leader development, and you write a book about composure, and then something like this happens, it's relevant, but you're also trying to figure out dealing with all the same uncertainty and resourcing and missional challenges that everyone else is. And so it's every week, we're doing these conversations with leaders where I go right after this. And one thing that we say every time is I'm living this with you. I'm not, there's principles from our research that we've learned, but we're living this together.
Yeah.
So.
I think I'm laughing to myself because I'm thinking, and I don't mean this in a very kind of funny, playful way, but God sometimes has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well, my middle child, Noah, who's 15, when he was born, while he was being born, our basement flooded. And we knew we were going to name him Noah, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So what's been the hardest part for you in this season?
The hardest part for me,
or most challenging, or however you want to.
I love the question. I'm just trying to be thoughtful about it. I think. I think on the face of it, it's resourcing, and attempting to serve the people that you are responsible for serving. And it's so interesting because everything we do, that I spent basically most of my career building a process, an online system for leader development. And so it was, instead of a one-off, it's like, how do we take this body of research that we know a lot about the developmental journey of leaders and provide a tool? Because I didn't want to be just an inspirational or motivational speaker who's doing the same thing every day. But I wanted to leave people with a resource and help them do real-time development over the span of their work, and so you do that, feel like everything's in line, and this is the surface answer, I think, is that this is what everyone is feeling, to be honest, is your pipeline freezes. It pauses, and for many it didn't disappear. It just like everybody stopped, like, okay, we got to figure out what's going on. I mean, I would have been on the road for the last 12 weeks or, all the time. And so now I'm not, but everybody's figuring out together. So for me personally though, I think it started off with resourcing. I think then the biggest thing became trust. My wife and I are learning to trust, and at a deeper level, because trust implies non-trust. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's a deeper thing than just trust, so that's been that. But I think it's been an amazing time. I don't mind being home. But I also know, I can walk out of my office and I have a yard. Some people are in a little New York apartment, that's, so I know I have those blessings too.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. There's a lot to unpack.
A lot there. I can probably relate with everything you said. And I think you actually said a couple things in exactly the right order. You said the pipeline froze. It paused. Uh-huh. In the beginning, it felt like it froze. This thing's permanent. Uh-huh. And then it kind of, over time, at least I realized, and you probably did too, it was really more of a pausing or a need to thaw out a little bit.
Yep.
And then people that maybe you thought, oh, well, they're gone. Like I took them off my, off my Excel spreadsheet, and then they came back and they said, no, we still want to do something, but can you do it like over Zoom, or can you do it in a different way?
Yeah.
Which is, well, a really good thing. And then there's the whole trust component and faith component and kind of, staying the course. So you made a comment on a post that I did this week earlier around, and I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but it had this idea of what leaders really need, and kind of what you've realized and seeing some leaders do this is kind of that it wasn't determination. It had a lot to do with purpose. It was this like maybe steely commitment. I can't remember exactly how you said it.
Yeah.
So can you educate us? What was that? Because it sounds like that's something you realized for you that's been important in this. Is kind of some sense of like deeper commitment or kind of motivator.
Yeah. So if I could geek out for just a second, one thing I don't know, there's an app I want to introduce you to that's been really, really important for me.
Nice.
It's called a clipboard. So, and I'm over anything but clipboards, and I'll come back. But what's been interesting, and I threw a bunch of things on the floor that I thought I would pull out of my bag of tricks, just the things that I'm seeing. You write a book about being composed under pressure, and then you experience a moment like this, and there's more that you want to write. So I've already finished 4 more chapters that would go in the next edition. I still think the book is valuable, by the way. And Daniel Halleck, Daniel would say, like, my wife said it's actually a pretty good book. So she always has to put actually, and you actually have a decent reading voice on Audible. She said Rob actually has. I don't know how to feel about that. But.
I remember back in my MBA teaching days, like you, when that was part of my life, and then I stepped away from it. You have an MBA student that would say, it was actually a good use of my time to meet with you.
Yeah. There was one place I used to speak repeatedly, and and people would come up to me afterwards, and they would say, that was awesome. That was so much better than last time. And I'm like, what was wrong with last time? Anyway, so this is, I think this will, you'll get this. This is a sigmoid curve, and I'm telling this because one of the things that we launched, so a lot of people did as well, was just started doing these free 90-minute, like no cost. We don't call them free, we call them no cost, workshops for all the client organizations that we have dealt with. So we've been doing dozens and dozens and dozens of these. And it's gotten me, and this week I think I've been with 400 leaders. It's been amazing across all kinds of crazy contexts. And one of the things that we've been talking about is just leading in uncertainty and the content around what I wrote about and studied. But this is a sigmoid curve. I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but it's a way to think about change processes in a person's life or an organization. Yep. And one of the things I always talk about is that it's like, in a normal context, I've talked about for years, is that when change occurs, is that things will feel like they're getting worse. Like this is what it sort of gives people permission, and leaders permission to say, like, people are not going to like it at first. Some will, but a lot won't. And then eventually it'll start to get better. Like we'll get used to things. We'll get used to the new technology. Because I think it's been interesting right now to think, what I had never modeled before is a time where we don't know where the bottom of this is. Like I almost draw it like a dotted line, because I don't even know if people perceive it as a bottom. But there's so much uncertainty. Like on university campuses, like universities are struggling right now. Like it's just like everybody else. And so what parents are asking is, what is the fall going to look like? Well, they can't know yet. You know what I mean? And so this has been an interesting thing, first of all. But one of the things that related to that I've seen over and over again with leaders, and I've experienced it myself, is that I talk about. I've talked for years about our research on the number one predictors of a leader's capacity to compose themselves under pressure, to maintain a sense of themselves and stay connected to others in real time. And that what we found was that there were two of the most powerful variables. One was sense of purpose, so knowing why they're in it, and the other one was focusing on potential. So seeing positive potential outcomes when everybody else just sees barriers. And on the purpose side, it's like, Simon Sinek does this TED Talk, and purpose becomes really popular. But for years, even back to my original research in aerospace with leaders there, purpose was the most powerful predictor of all kinds of organizational outcomes.
Yeah.
And what's been interesting is I've talked a lot, leaders, if anyone knows me for anything, it's the word conviction, trying to build up conviction in people that don't have it yet. And the word conviction, I hope I'm not going too deep, Brandon. You can just interrupt.
Keep going. I'm tracking you. I'm with you.
Is that if anything, what we've seen happen in the leaders we're working with is that it's been an exposure of their roots. And it's exposed a questioning of whether or not they still believe or ever did believe in the mission that whether it was implied or explicit, the mission that was there. And what's interesting about conviction is that, an uncontested statement is an opinion. The word conviction, I think the Greek root of it is the word elencho, which means to cross-examine. So a conviction is not formed until it's cross-examined. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you don't.
Okay. That's cool.
You don't get.
I get that. Yep. You did geek out on that one. That's really good.
That's really
good.
One of the
Even
things.
Whitney's like nodding her head. She's like, yes, that's excellent.
I'm here.
So
here.
you really don't know it's really there until it's tested. Until you have some of those kind of moments of pressure.
Yeah, totally. We form them together. It's interesting, right? We live in community and we actually form conviction together. And so and one of the biggest challenges lately, like I was with a CEO yesterday, awesome CEO, but very much a command and control. That's the background that he came from. And what I was trying to lean him into was this idea that you still lead strong with tasks and, on that side of things, that command matters. Like, where are we going? People need clarity, but people are going to challenge the clarity. But the purpose is something that is not assigned, but it's invited. And so challenging leaders to share for example, share your mission statement with your team and then invite them to talk about, so where do you connect with it? Let people, and that's hard for leaders to do because it's like, it's vulnerable, right? It's saying like, what if they don't?
Yeah.
Well, what if they don't? So it's been an interesting time of trying to encourage and invite people, I guess, of encouraging people to look at what's been exposed.
I've got a really hard question for you.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Love it.
I sure hope you're ready for this.
I hope I love it. I don't know.
Okay, so I imagine people listening right now are going to say, okay, I'm sold. I get it. I love this idea of conviction. I love this idea of having a deeper purpose. How do I get one, Rob?
You don't get one. I don't know what this is going to say, but do you know that there's some research out there, like the people that search for meaning are less likely to find it?
Oh, interesting.
And so I think the issue is this. I think it's moving toward, and this is the work that we do. It's always clunky. It's just by its very nature, but moving toward a deeper conversation and allowing the clunkiness and the awkwardness of what it means to get there to a conviction. I got to tell one story and I'll shut up. It's brief, but years ago I interviewed an executive in the airplane industry who will remain there and she was managing a $1 billion business. And I did something really weird with her. And I asked her, I think this is relevant today, by the way. I asked her, I said, why do you lead? And she said, the business, this was years ago, I was a much younger man, and the business had a 2016 vision. And she said, I believe in the 2016 vision for the business. And it was all this business speak. It was all true, not interesting. So I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, she's way more senior than I've ever imagined, so I said, why do you lead? I asked the same question again, and which is weird. It doesn't happen normally in culture. And she kind of look on her face, was like either I wasn't listening or she had the wrong answer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like this weird. So I let the time. I just was like, just kind of sat there. And this is what she said next. After a few moments, she said, "Well, I started climbing the corporate ladder, and my husband and I got used to a new standard of living, and it was a lot of that. And so I listened, and it was still true, but it wasn't compelling. So I did something I'd never done before. I asked another question. Why do you lead? No other qualifier. And
she hasn't thrown you out of her office yet. She's still with you.
No, like she hung in there, and she said, at that point, she said when I was 9 years old. And keep in mind, this is a person who leads in building airplanes. She said when I was 9 years old, my sister and I got up on the roof of our house and we built cardboard wings. And I put the wings on, and my sister, before I was ready, pushed me off the roof, and I broke my arm. And she said, Rob, ever since then, I have wanted to help people fly.
Great answer.
And I was like, immediately, it was like, I would follow you anywhere. You know, it gives me chills to this day. Like, and so part of that, when if someone were to ask, like, how do I do this? It's like being open to the deeper conversation. Because what I was doing is I was questioning her conviction. Yeah. That's what it felt like for her at first. But I wasn't trying to be provocative. I wanted to know, like, why are you here? And it is hard for leaders to do that because it feels vulnerable. It's like those weren't wrong answers. They weren't lies, but they also weren't compelling.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
You know,
so I'll add something. I'm going to put on my therapist hat for a minute since I'm, recovering therapist. So I got my therapist hat on for a minute. And my experience has been the purpose question. A lot of people are looking for some neon sign, so they're driving down the highway. It's like, your purpose, turn right in 0.5 miles, next exit. And that, my experience has been, it's already back behind you in your story. You just have to kind of be able to kind of dig back through it and see the patterns and kind of claim it.
Yeah.
Because it's for most people, it's already there. It's just a matter of seeing all those elements in your life and finding that need in the world that you want to commit to. So
yeah. There's also, I know this is a controversial word in some spaces, but I think there's an interesting also that we talk about, this discrepancy between purpose and call. And it's and that I think you're absolutely right. It's like an examination. Did you know, like, if you read Bandura's work on self-efficacy, like if anybody wants to go deep, it's, and even agency, is that so much of it is rooted in this belief that I could actually do something. Anyway, that's a side note, but that it's interesting in this moment for me personally. So for example, I cleaned out my office the other day. And I got, I've been in 25 years. I got books up the yin yang. I got books, I had thousands of books, and I'm throwing away books. And I got to this book called Multivariate Statistics. And like, I'm thinking,
why do you still have that book? Why do you still have that book?
Well, I know. And I'm like, but we've talked about on my team that one of my biggest challenges in terms of that purpose and call question is transitioning out of where half my life is as a scholar. Into I've got to fully embrace my CEO role because my team needs that. And I don't even know what that looks like because I've never been full-time CEO. I've had 2 jobs for 25 years. So it's interesting. Like, I think part of it is like looking back and saying, what is it shaped me? But it's also on the call side, it's interesting because it's also listening. Are we, because the word calling is literally, it's listening, right? It's a call. Am I willing to pick up the phone? And so I think it's exactly what you said. It's that looking back, but it's also saying, am I spending enough time and pause to listen to what it is that transcendent summons on my life, whatever you believe about where that's coming from, that may be summoning to something that may feel like it's not something you're even good at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's a really cool idea of kind of this idea of, we said purpose, but we also said calling, right? Were those the kind of the two?
Yeah.
And so if we kind of say that purpose is kind of written in your story, that need that's kind of formed in your life that you're attached to, and then call is, what does that need continue to look like as it evolves? So like for me, and I've got a whole story around it, but my purpose is to eliminate all workplace dysfunction.
Love it.
Everywhere, forever, right? And so I've got history in that, story in that, and then, of course, now there's a new form of workplace dysfunction as people are trying to kind of muddle their way through of kind of getting stuff done virtually, and how do they connect, and how do they build relationships and do all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So for me, it was there, but now it's still calling me forward.
Yeah.
Just in a different way.
It's another way to think about it is that a hammer, I was thinking about a claw hammer. was created for a purpose, and most people know it was to pound or pull nails. So it has those specifications. That's what it's good at and all that. But could the hammer be called to do something else if it was not an inanimate object?
Yeah.
And that's interesting because, could it be a paperweight? And it's kind of interesting to say, like, because we get locked into this is all I'm wired for, and it's holding that, but then being willing to say, like, what do people need me to become as well, or what is it that I feel like I need something to?
So I've got some more questions, but I want to see if Whitney's gotten anything on Facebook Live that she wants to throw Rob's way.
I do. I have two really good ones teed up.
Okay.
All right. So Chi-Chi asks, Rob, have the leaders you've worked with ever questioned their leadership skills during this particular time? Are they starting to notice weaknesses or even strengths?
Oh, man. Yes. That's such a good question. Will you read it again, the first part? It was
I will. Have the leaders you have worked with ever questioned their leadership skills during this time?
That's a good question.
I think. Oh man, this is sort of what's interesting to me is that I like leaders who have put themselves at the learning table. I'm drawn to those kinds of folks, and so I have to be honest to the question. I have to be honest about the reality that we create invitations to certain kinds of leaders, and I use a word that I've made up called editability, and I describe it as the willingness to have the backspace key hit on things that feel like they're a part of your character. Like it could be that deep. Like leadership development is leadership change, and change is never not going to be hard. So I think one of the things I have to be realistic about is the leaders who I get to work with are leaders who have chosen to sit at that learning table. And so because the other ones, the ones who are not or not seeing the need for change, like why would they come see me? And so yes, it's just the need is profound. It's almost overwhelming. I was telling you all that like this week I think I've been in front of, and we do really interactive kinds of sessions like you do as well. And so I'm hearing a lot from them. With this week alone, probably 400 leaders after Saturday is over. And the need is massive. There's more uncertainty, more of a questioning of purpose, more of a disconnection between people do not know how to connect. You know what's been crazy right now? I hope this makes sense too. One more slide.
He's going to his flip chart. There it is. Oh, okay.
This is the fundamental thing about what's in my book around self and other that we found across all our populations was a leader's capacity to maintain a sense of themselves, their convictions, what matters to them. Both of those quick convictions have been tested, and a connection to others. Like this is what it looks like in an ideal world. When pressure hits, I'm bombing through this. Okay, that's the ideal. When pressure hits, what we found over the years is that some people, their habit is to a lot of self. Okay, so it's like become very much an autocratic kind of leader. Other leaders, a lot of connection to others, over connection to others. Dictator, peacemonger, right? So we all have these habits under pressure. Here's what's fascinating right now to Chi-Chi's question. I hope this is Chi-Chi's question. That's been really interesting that I've never modeled before. Like I always did the Venn diagram that way. What if it's not a Venn diagram? I think what so many leaders we've been dealing with, and I think it's shifting a little bit, was these bubbles are just disconnected. Like CEOs, when they admit what's really going on, is they're like, I don't know if I'm communicating the right things. People want clarity, but what they actually want is they want their clarity. Brandon, you're just giving, and both of you guys are just giving me a chance to just geek out on stuff I've been talking about. But like, this has been fascinating. And what'll happen, like back to the sigmoid curve, is that as soon as people get used to whatever the technology is, we make decisions. We're going to stay at home for a while. Those of us who can, in the work that we do. But these bubbles will come back together and we'll have the same issues. But right now we're just like, what's going on? So,
is that a bad thing that they're not connected?
I think it's created, for some people, it's created good things. Like for me, I know one of the things is when I'm face to face with people, I really do care about what people in my influence think of me too much.
Yeah.
And I think some ways the technology has given me an emotional distance that's actually been healthy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I feel much more comfortable picking on Whitney from a distance, frankly.
Okay. Did you? You feel much more comfortable now. Okay.
So here's what was going through my head. Maybe this is not what you were trying to get across, Rob, but it was almost like figuring out a way to have that healthy tension between two things, right? That self and others, and not kind of and keep them both in healthy tension.
Yeah.
Even this idea of like, you were hinting at this, and you said it a couple times already today, but this idea that what this has forced a lot of leaders to do is go down the path of vulnerability. And I've been preaching the importance of this. You've been preaching the importance of this, and most leaders had the ability to, and the kind of just the I don't know exactly what you want to say it, but they could not, they didn't have to do it. And they're like, nah, I get vulnerability, but I don't really have to do that. I got to kind of have the benefits of not having to do that. Now they have to do that. But then it becomes a tension of, you can be too vulnerable, right? You could be curled up in a ball crying, and then your people would be like, no, that's not exactly what we need right now.
Yeah.
So there's a level of vulnerability, but also people want that confidence and strength that a leader provides, the steadiness. That we're going to go into the storm, and I can look to you and you're not freaking out. You're going to kind of set that emotional tone for us.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to hold them in balance.
Yeah.
And if you go too far either way, it doesn't work. So maybe that's what I was thinking when you showed those two circles. I thought, oh wow, look at them, they're like balanced. And how do you keep it that way? Keep that tension there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're going for, but that's where my head went.
It's so what we studied, like the second half of my book is, part of me is a very solutions-focused person, so I had to describe what that was about in depth, because there's all kinds of things that are. It's also that those bubbles. It's also it's inherently systemic. In other words, our habitual responses affect each other. We affect each other depending upon the team that you've built. Is also the idea. It came out of family systems theory. All of our work, because we couldn't find leadership literature that actually addressed what we were seeing.
Yeah.
In leaders. And then, so what I wanted to study, though, we studied the strategies that allowed people to maintain those things, to work hard at it. And so that's where the sense of purpose and the focus on potential, those are 2 of 11 strategies that emerged as important to do that well. So it's, I'm not, and you know this about me, I'm not that interested in leadership. And I know that there need to be people who are, but I'm really interested in leaders. And so my brain always goes to the individual. Like I look at the two of you, and I see a whole development journey around you. And so that's what I've studied for all these years. That's what I'm interested in. But if people want to talk about what are the top 7 leadership principles, it's not me.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's a wannabe therapist, I guess.
So so I want to let Whitney hit the next question, and then I've got one final question, and then we'll start to wrap up, because I know you've got your thing that's going on at 10 a.m. Pacific. Yeah. So I want to make sure you've got time to prep for that. So awesome. Whitney, what's the other question you had?
Okay, perfect. So Maureen asks, the spectrum from hobby to vocation is interesting work with my career clients. Capital C career culture shoulds cripple people's thinking. Do you have advice for helping leaders tap into pushing past fear of career culture to living out vocation?
Yes, I think I know what was her name?
Maureen.
Maureen. I think I know, and I apologize if I miss it, because I focus in on a word that you said, and so I'm going to say something, and hopefully it's compelling if I miss it. Is that the word should? She said that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Our session this morning is on learning agility. And so there's a lot of interesting research around that whole thing. And it's so interesting she mentioned career culture, because the cultural paradigm around leader development that is really hard to break out of is a culture of needs and shoulds, and of things like looking over people's shoulders. We say we want people to own their own development, but we don't actually give them the tools to do it. And so I had a conversation with a leader several months ago who was an amazing leader again, and they were going to get up in front of us, about 1,500 people and all hands. They're going to launch our Wild Toolkit program into their organization. So this is the big moment. And he says, what I'm going to get up there and do is I'm going to tell everybody everybody in this room should be investing in the development of others around them. And so this is me trying to be tactful. I said, can I change one thing? Can you not say should? Can I change it to say this, to invite them through a question? The most development occurs through questions. And so this is what I encouraged him to say. What he ended up saying is, I said, can you pause for just a moment? This is what it's exactly, can you pause for a moment? What would change if every person in this room were investing in the learning and development of others around? And it was just, you see that, like, it's subtle, yeah. But it's everything. Because everything we know about efficacy, about learning and growth, is that it's more about questions than it is answers. And that's awkward because we want answers. I'm not saying that some answers, and so this is why this morning when I talk about learning agility is invited, not assigned. And it's radical because of the way we talk. In the growth mindset literature, Carol Dweck's research, all of that would just support. It's an invitation, and an invitation is most often questions, and sometimes people will bash your questions because they're like, I don't like your question. Well, then what's your question?
Yeah.
And so I love it that she said that, because I think it's true. I think we do need scaffolding. We need these are some principles, but we also need to give ourselves permission to invite people. And it's hard for a CEO to do that, for example. It's like, what if they don't connect with the mission? Well, maybe they need to go work somewhere else.
Yeah. So I heard a couple things in this, Rob. First, from a leader perspective right now, I'm hearing, and you used the phrase a couple times, invitation. I love that. And I think that's a good spirit. Rather than giving directives, invitations for people going forward. I think that's really powerful. And then to Maureen's question, she said kind of this idea of staying down that should path of kind of sticking with your career versus going down kind of what you really love and making a vocation. If I riff off of your comment around questions, a mentor of mine used to always ask this question when he was kind of helping me take my therapy background and my kind of MBA and kind of blend the two together. He loved this question. What will that cost you? So this idea of, like, if you don't change, what's that going to cost you? And really kind of play out the story, like the story of just being stuck in this career you really don't like, but you feel like you should be in it. Well, what's that going to cost you? And just a question like that could be like, wow, yeah, that's a pretty big cost. I don't think I want that cost. And that could be the reason for the move.
Do you ever wonder also if, I think a lot about adult development theory and research, and I think there's also the reality that people in developmental stages, sometimes I think we learn a lot from the shoulds, that without them, like, we can't also steal away the power of really negative experiences. Like, leadership development literature would support that. And so it's like, I'm not saying I want emerging leaders to struggle massively all the time, but it's also like we learn a lot through navigating those feelings. Like, my parents told me I should go to medical school.
Well,
it's
the shoulds are the rules. You have to learn the rules before you can break them.
It's absolutely true.
Right? I learn the rules, and then I decide which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to get rid of.
Yeah. So
that's part of that agency, I guess. Tying it back.
I think you were closer to Maureen's question, by the way.
Well, I want to keep you on track. So, what's maybe any final closing thoughts you might have for us, Rob, as we're going through this season right now? You're thinking about, either both as primarily it's us as individuals, as kind of everyone listening to this is a leader in their own way. What kind of things would you say? Yeah, this is what you could really kind of focus on or get out of this time right now.
Yeah,
or should keep on your radar.
I think two things that are encouraging, hopefully, and then one piece of advice, if I could, is that one thing this is also exposed is that that I'm about whole leader development, and part of what it means to be whole is connecting the resourcing part with the heart. So it's like all the invisible stuff and motivations with the fact that we need money to actually make payroll. And I think this is exposed is that for every one of us, like, that's now reality. The whole picture is now not something we hide from. It's like, it's there. So to embrace it, that's part of our whole story, that money matters, but it's not everything. You know what I mean? And that there's and the motivations and calling and purpose, those things matter too, but they're not, but they matter in relationship to these things. And so the other thing that this is hopefully more practical, is one thing that related to purpose that my Wild Leaders team does. And And for a shameless plug on the brand, by the way, WILD stands for Whole and Intentional Leader Development. And whole intentional leader development is a wild story. It involves lots of crazy twists and turns for everybody, every leader we work with. But this is the thing that we have been doing on the sense of purpose thing, is every time we go into any Zoom call, when it was face-to-face, whatever, we ask ourselves before, and we really do this, we ask ourselves, why are we here? And the reason why is that because if we know the answer to that question, we know from this research that no matter where that storm goes, like quite literally, Brandon disappears from the Zoom call. Well, we already have thought about why we're here in the first place. So it's one of our most important business continuity plans that so often we dismiss because we start going, we start reacting, we start doing. But what our research would suggest is that why question is a business question. So, and it needs to be specific, like, why are you your children's parents? Think about that before you get in your fight with your 17-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it's for every moment. So our team is trying to really practice that religiously, is just saying, why are we here? And somebody different from the team will ask the question if one of us forgets.
Yeah.
So it's just powerful, and it can help sustain you. And that's what I hope for people in this season.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Just ask the simple question of why am I here? And I love that you used it both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
Because we've also seen that kind of blend in different ways. And I'm sure people are experiencing different pressures in both of those worlds right now.
Yeah.
So I love that. Well, so Rob, if people want to learn more about you and the work you're up to, where can they go?
Go to wildleaders.org is our website. If you want more information on the WILD Toolkit, it's called thewildtoolkit.com. And we're doing these every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're doing what's called a WILD conversation. So we've had groups, and it's a pretty engaging. That's the other weird thing, is that people are used to webinars where they just sit back. And you do kind of step in, but we create a safe environment for 1 hour for people to engage in deeper conversations, like learning agility today. There's a lot to be known about that, but making it personal also. So I'd love to see people jump into that conversation, and it's a safe place to meet leaders from all over the country. There was a emerging leader from India on a couple weeks ago. It was amazing. He's sitting in front of a dirt wall with his cell phone right here, along with professional athletes and CEOs. And it's my best world. Just shove those people together and let them meet each other, and you'll meet some amazing people. So
really cool.
Yeah.
Hey man, thanks for coming on the show.
All
this
right.
is absolutely great. It's always good to be with you and good to kind of hear what you're up to, and really excited for the path and the journey you've been on. I know it wasn't quite exactly the way you would have scripted it, but maybe that's what makes it wild.
Yeah, maybe so.
See how I did that? See how I did that?
I see that. I'm grateful to be in this with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Whitney, thanks for all your hard work today too.
Whitney, thank you.
Really appreciate it. So everyone, thanks for listening and watching. Of course, join us next week when we'll do another kind of leadership lunch. And until then, have a great week and an awesome life.
All right.
Bye, everybody.